Zekthar stood in the docking bay of the human vessel, watching his shuttle depart through the energy field. The Velnari military observer carried 3 datapads, 2 scanning devices, and enough prejudice to fill a cargo hold. His assignment was simple: spend 2 weeks evaluating human combat capabilities and report back to the Galactic Coalition. He expected this to be the easiest assignment of his career. The humans were new to the galaxy. They had only achieved faster-than-light travel 15 years ago, stumbling into Coalition space like children wandering into an adult conversation. Their ships were crude compared to Velnari designs. Their weapons were primitive, projectile-based systems. Even their biology was laughable. Zekthar had studied the reports. Humans were weak. Their bones broke easily. Their skin tore from simple impacts. They needed specific atmospheric conditions to survive. They even needed to sleep for a third of every cycle. The docking bay doors opened, and a human walked through. He was tall by human standards, but still shorter than Zekthar. His skin was darker than the others Zekthar had seen in the reports. The human wore a dark blue uniform with golden markings on the shoulders. "Welcome aboard the Defiant," the human said, extending his hand forward. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison." Zekthar understood this was a human greeting ritual. He touched the captain's hand briefly. The human's grip was firm, but not aggressive. Interesting. Most species either tried to demonstrate dominance through their greeting or showed submission. Humans seemed to do neither. "I am Observer Zekthar of the Velnari Third Fleet," he replied. "I appreciate your cooperation with this evaluation." Jake smiled. Zekthar had read about human facial expressions. The smile indicated friendliness, though it could also indicate deception. He would remain cautious. The smile is Grime. "Happy to have you," Jake said. "Let me show you to your quarters. Then I'll introduce you to the crew." As they walked through the ship's corridors, Zekthar observed everything. The walls were plain metal, with exposed piping. Velnari ships had smooth, sealed corridors. This looked unfinished. The lighting was harsh and bright. The air smelled strange, like cleaning chemicals and something he couldn't identify. Later, he would learn humans called it coffee. "Your room is here," Jake said, opening a door. "It's not fancy, but it should be comfortable. We set the gravity to match your homeworld specifications. If you need anything adjusted, just ask." The room was small but functional. A bed, a desk, a private bathroom, more than adequate for his needs. "I will begin my observations tomorrow," Zekthar said. "Actually, we're having dinner in the crew mess in an hour," Jake said. "You're welcome to join us. Good way to meet everyone in a relaxed setting." Zekthar wanted to refuse. He wasn't here to socialize. But understanding crew dynamics might be valuable for his report. "I will attend," he said. The mess hall was crowded and loud. Humans sat at tables in groups, talking and laughing. Some were eating. Others were playing games with cards. The noise level would have been unacceptable on a Velnari ship. Here, nobody seemed concerned. Jake guided him to a table where 2 humans waited. One was female, with red hair tied back from her face. The other was male, with a shaved head and thick arms. "This is Lieutenant Katie Walsh, my tactical officer," Jake said, gesturing to the female. "And this is Sergeant Ben Carter, who leads our Marine detachment." "Welcome to the madhouse," Katie said with a grin. "Hope you're ready for some chaos." "We don't bite," Ben added. "Well, most of us don't." Zekthar sat down, unsure how to respond to their humor. A human brought him a tray of food. It looked unappetizing, but he had been assured it was safe for Velnari digestion. He ate slowly while observing the crew around him. The humans were relaxed. Too relaxed. On a military vessel, there should be discipline, order. Instead, he watched junior crew members joking with senior officers. He saw a young female human playfully punch a male human's arm. He heard laughter echoing from every corner of the room. "Your crew lacks discipline," Zekthar observed. Jake laughed. They might seem casual, but when it matters, they're professionals. We believe happy crew members perform better than scared ones. Scared crew members follow orders, Zekthar said. So do crew members who trust their officers, Katie replied. Maybe even better, because they understand why they're following those orders. Zekthar made a note on his datapad. Human command structure appeared dysfunctional. This would be valuable information for his report. Over the next few days, Zekthar observed the crew's daily routines. Every morning, groups of humans gathered in the ship's gym. They ran on machines that went nowhere. They lifted heavy objects up and down repeatedly. They fought each other in a padded ring, practicing combat techniques that looked clumsy compared to Velnari martial arts. He watched Ben Carter train his Marine squad. The sergeant was patient, correcting techniques and encouraging his soldiers. When one young private failed to complete an obstacle course, Ben helped him try again, instead of punishing the failure. Weakness, Zekthar thought. A proper military would remove such a soldier. Katie Walsh invited him to observe a tactical simulation. The bridge crew worked through various combat scenarios. They were competent with their primitive systems, but nothing impressive. When they made mistakes, they laughed about it. When they succeeded, they celebrated loudly. It was all very informal and, Zekthar believed, ineffective. What do you think? Jake asked, after one simulation. Your crew is adequate, Zekthar said carefully. For a species so new to space warfare. That's diplomatic, Jake said with a smile. I can read between the lines. You think we're soft, unprofessional, not ready for real combat. Zekthar appreciated the human's directness. Your assessment is accurate. Fair enough, Jake said. Let's hope you never have to see us in real combat. For everyone's sake, there was something in the captain's tone that Zekthar couldn't identify. On the 7th day of his observation, Zekthar composed his preliminary report. He documented the humans' weak physical structure, their chaotic command system, their emotional decision-making processes. He noted their outdated weapons and poorly designed ships. His conclusion was clear. Humans posed no military threat to the Galactic Coalition. They were friendly enough to be useful allies, but they would need decades of development before they could contribute meaningfully to Coalition defense. He sent the report to his superiors and felt satisfied with his analysis. He had 3 more days before his shuttle would return. He expected them to be as boring as the previous week had been. Zekthar had no idea how wrong he was. He had no idea that in less than 2 days, everything he believed about humans would shatter. He had no idea that he was about to experience something he had never felt before in his long military career. He had no idea that he was about to learn what it meant to feel real panic. The alarm started screaming at 0400 hours. Zekthar woke from deep sleep, confused and disoriented. Red lights flashed in his quarters. The ship's speakers crackled with urgent voices. He grabbed his datapads and stumbled into the corridor. Humans ran past him in both directions. They moved with purpose, pulling on equipment as they ran. Nobody looked panicked. Nobody was screaming. They just moved fast and focused. Battle stations. All hands to battle stations, the speakers announced. Zekthar made his way to the bridge. It was his assignment to observe combat readiness. After all, when he arrived, the scene was controlled chaos. Every station was occupied. Screens displayed tactical information. Katie Walsh stood at the weapons console, her fingers dancing across controls. Jake Morrison sat in the captain's chair, leaning forward slightly. Report, Jake said calmly. 3 Krell warships just dropped out of hyperspace, Katie said. They're targeting the convoy. Coalition escorts are forming defensive positions. Zekthar felt his blood chill. The Krell. He knew about them. Everyone in the galaxy knew about them. They were raiders, pirates, murderers. They attacked without warning and took no prisoners. Their ships were heavily armed, and their crews were vicious fighters. Each Krell warrior stood nearly 3 meters tall, with armored skin and natural weapons. They were predators. "Get me Coalition Command," Jake ordered. A Velnari admiral appeared on the screen. Zekthar recognized him as Admiral Kortal, commander of the escort fleet. "All vessels, fall back to Rally Point Theta," the admiral said. "We'll regroup and call for reinforcements." "Admiral, we have civilian ships in that convoy," Jake said. "If we retreat, the Krell will destroy them. Those are acceptable losses, Captain Morrison. We cannot risk our warships against superior numbers. Fall back immediately." "That's an order." The screen went dark. Jake sat still for a moment. Around the bridge, the human crew waited. Nobody spoke. Then Jake stood up. "Katie, target the lead Krell ship. Navigation. Plot and intercept course. Engineering. I want everything you can give me to weapons and shields." "Captain, the Admiral ordered us to retreat," Katie said quietly. "I heard him," Jake replied. "I'm choosing to interpret that order creatively. The convoy needs help. We're going to provide it." Katie smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was something else. Something that made Zekthar uncomfortable. "Understood, sir. Weapons are hot. All hands, this is the captain," Jake announced over the ship's speakers. "We're about to engage 3 Krell warships to protect the convoy. I won't lie to you. This is going to be rough. But we're not leaving those civilians to die. Not today. Not ever." Morrison out. The ship accelerated. Zekthar gripped the railing near the back of the bridge. This was insane. The Defiant was 1 ship against 3. The humans should be running. Instead, they were charging directly into combat. "First Krell ship is targeting us," Katie reported. "They're firing." The ship shook as energy weapons impacted the shields. Alarms beeped. Zekthar waited for panic. For fear. For something. Instead, the bridge crew worked faster. Their movements were precise, efficient. Like a machine. "Return fire," Jake ordered. The Defiant's weapons fired. Zekthar watched the tactical display. The human weapons were different from Velnari energy beams. They fired physical projectiles at incredible speeds. Rail guns, the humans called them. Primitive. Zekthar had thought. Now he watched as those projectiles tore through the Krell ship's shields and punched holes in its armor. "Direct hit on their engine section," Katie said. Her voice was steady. "Target the second ship," Jake ordered. The battle became a blur. The Defiant moved in ways that shouldn't be possible for a ship its size. It dodged incoming fire while simultaneously attacking. The human crew never stopped working, never hesitated. When one console exploded in sparks, the officer rolled away. Another officer took his place, and a medical team dragged the wounded crew member away. All in seconds. All without breaking the rhythm. Zekthar realized something terrifying. The humans weren't just defending themselves. They were hunting. Every move Jake made pushed the Krell ships into worse positions. Every shot Katie fired was calculated to cause maximum damage. The other coalition ships had retreated to watch from a safe distance. The Defiant fought alone. "Second Krell ship is breaking off," Katie reported. "Let them," Jake said. "Navigation. Bring us about." "Katie, the moment they're in range, fire everything." The ship spun. Zekthar's stomach lurched. On the screen, he watched the 3rd Krell ship come into view. It was massive. Easily twice the size of the Defiant. Its weapons charged. "Fire," Jake said quietly. The Defiant unleashed everything. Railguns. Missiles. Energy weapons. The Krell ship's shields flashed and failed. Explosions rippled across its hull. But it kept coming. It fired back. The Defiant shook violently. Lights flickered. "Shields at 30%, someone reported. "Hull breach on deck 4. We've got casualties in engineering." The reports came in rapid succession. Still, nobody panicked. Jake gave orders. The crew followed them. They worked together like they had practiced this exact scenario 1,000 times. "Their weapons are charging again," Katie said. "We can't take another hit like that." "We won't have to," Jake said. "Fire at their bridge. Everything we have left." The Defiant's weapons fired one more time. The Krell ship's bridge exploded in a brilliant flash. The massive ship went dark and began to drift. "Cease fire," Jake ordered. "Damage report." As the crew called out various systems, failures, and casualty counts, Zekthar stood frozen. He had just watched one human ship defeat 3 Krell warships. Ships that should have been impossible to beat. He had watched the human crew transform from the casual, joking people he'd observed for a week into something else entirely. Something focused. Something dangerous. Jake turned to look at him. "You okay, observer?" Zekthar realized his legs were shaking. Yes. That was necessary," Jake finished. "Katie, get me Coalition Command again." Admiral Kortal appeared on the screen. He looked shocked. "Captain Morrison, your actions were completely against orders." However, the Admiral paused. "Your results speak for themselves." "Well done." "Thank you, sir," Jake said. "We're going to need repair teams and medical support." "Already on the way," the Admiral said. Kortal out. The bridge crew began to relax slightly. Someone made a joke. Others laughed. Just like that, they were casual again. Like they hadn't just fought a desperate battle. Like they hadn't just done the impossible. Zekthar returned to his quarters in a daze. He pulled out his datapad and stared at his preliminary report. Every word he had written was wrong. Completely wrong. The humans weren't weak. Ada frowned. Ada frowned. Ada frowned. They weren't unprofessional. They were something else. Something he hadn't expected. He deleted the report. Then his datapad beeped with a new message. It was from Admiral Kortal. The message was simple. "Convoy under attack again. Multiple Krell boarding parties have taken over civilian transport Bright Hope. Defiant is closest ship. Render assistance immediately." Zekthar felt cold. Boarding parties. That meant close combat. Hand-to-hand, fighting. Against the Krell. He thought about the humans he'd observed in the gym. Their clumsy fighting techniques. Their weak bodies. Then he thought about what he'd just witnessed on the bridge. For the first time in his career, Observer Zekthar wasn't sure what he believed anymore. Sergeant Ben Carter stood in the armory, checking his rifle for the 3rd time. Around him, his Marine squad geared up in silence. They moved with practiced efficiency, strapping on armor plates, loading weapons, checking communication devices. Zekthar watched from the doorway, his datapad clutched in his hands. "Observer, you're welcome to stay on the Defiant," Ben said without looking up. "This is going to get messy." "I must document human combat capabilities," Zekthar replied. Ben finally looked at him. "Suit yourself. Stay behind me and do exactly what I say." "Exactly. Understand?" Zekthar nodded. He had faced danger before. He was a military observer. He had training. But something in Ben's tone made his skin prickle. The squad consisted of 8 humans. Ben was the leader. There was Danny Price, a broad-shouldered male with scars on his hands. Lisa Chen, a small female who looked too young to be a soldier. Sam Rodriguez, who kept making jokes that nobody laughed at. Amy Brooks, who had tattoos covering her arms. And 3 others whose names Zekthar hadn't learned yet. One of them was Chris Turner, a quiet male who kept adjusting his gloves. They boarded a small shuttle and flew across to the damaged transport ship. Through the window, Zekthar could see the Bright Hope. Its hull was scarred with weapon impacts. Sections were vented to space. Emergency lights flickered inside. "Intel says there are about 40 civilians trapped in the cargo bay," Ben briefed his team. "Between us and them are approximately 15 Krell warriors. Our job is simple. Kill the Krell. Save the civilians." Questions? Nobody asked any questions. The shuttle docked with a hard clang. The Marines moved into the transport ship in a tight formation. Zekthar followed, trying to stay close to Ben. The corridor was dark, except for emergency lighting. The air was cold and smelled like burned metal. They moved quietly. Too quietly. Zekthar was impressed by how the humans controlled their breathing and footsteps. Then, he heard it. A roar from ahead. Deep and threatening. A Krell. Roar. 3 Krell warriors appeared around the corner. They were massive. Each one stood nearly 3 meters tall, with thick, armored skin covering their bodies. Their arms ended in claws that could tear through metal. Their jaws had rows of sharp teeth. They carried crude weapons that looked like clubs with blades attached. Zekthar froze. He had seen images of Krell before, but seeing them in person was different. They were nightmares, made flesh, unstoppable killing machines. The Marines opened fire. The corridor filled with the sound of gunfire. Bullets struck the Krell warriors, punching holes in their thick skin. One Krell went down immediately. The other 2 charged forward, roaring in rage. Danny, Lisa, take the left one. Sam, Amy, with me, Ben shouted. The Marines split up. They moved around the charging Krell warriors, firing from different angles. One Krell swung its weapon at Lisa. She was tiny compared to the monster. Zekthar expected her to die. Instead, she ducked under the swing, rolled to the side, and put 3 bullets into the Krell's knee. It collapsed with a scream. Danny finished it with a shot to the head. The 3rd Krell had been pinned against a wall, its massive hand wrapped around the sergeant's throat. Ben's rifle was knocked away. Zekthar watched in horror. Then he saw Ben pull a knife from his belt. The sergeant stabbed upward, driving the blade into the Krell's armpit, into the gap in its armor. The Krell released him and staggered back. Amy shot it 5 times before it fell. Ben picked up his rifle and kept moving. Push forward. Stay together. We you. We you. We you. We you. They encountered more Krell. Each battle was brutal and fast. The humans used tactics Zekthar had never seen. They threw grenades around corners. They used the environment as weapons, causing pipes to explode in steam that blinded the Krell. They worked together perfectly, covering each other and attacking from multiple directions. Danny took a hit. A Krell club smashed into his arm. Zekthar heard bones break. Danny screamed but didn't stop fighting. He switched his rifle to his other hand and kept firing. Danny, fall back, Ben ordered. Negative, Sarge. I'm good, Danny replied through gritted teeth. They reached a junction. The corridor split into 3 directions. Ben held up his hand to stop the squad. He pointed at Lisa and 2 others. Check left. We'll take middle. Mark the right corridor. We'll clear it on the way back. Lisa nodded and led her smaller team down the left corridor. Zekthar felt nervous watching the squad split up. Wasn't that dangerous? Then he remembered what he'd learned. Humans didn't follow Velnari tactics. They created their own rules. A roar echoed from the middle corridor. Multiple roars. Ben's face remained calm. Contact ahead. 4, maybe 5. Frag out. Sam threw a grenade down the corridor. The explosion was deafening. Before the smoke cleared, the Marines were moving forward, firing into the chaos. Zekthar followed, trying to stay close to the group. His ears rang. His hands shook. Then everything went wrong. An explosion from somewhere above knocked Zekthar off his feet. He slid across the floor and hit a wall. When he looked up, the Marines were gone. He was alone, in a side corridor. His datapad was cracked. His communication device wasn't working. He stood up slowly. Where was he? He tried to remember the path they'd taken. Left? No. Right? He wasn't sure. He picked a direction and started walking. Every shadow looked like a Krell. Every sound made him jump. Then he heard breathing. Heavy breathing. Behind him. Zekthar turned slowly. A Krell warrior stood 3 meters away. Blood covered its armor. One of its arms hung uselessly. But it was still huge. Still dangerous. Still very much alive. The Krell saw him and smiled. It was the most terrifying thing Zekthar had ever seen. He tried to run. The Krell was faster. It grabbed him and slammed him against the wall. Pain exploded through Zekthar's body. The Krell raised its good arm, claws extended, ready to tear him apart. This was how he would die. Alone, far from home, killed by a monster in a dark corridor. Then he heard a voice. "Hey, ugly." The Krell turned. A human stood at the end of the corridor. It was Chris Turner, the quiet Marine. He looked terrible. His armor was cracked. Blood ran down his face. He was limping. His rifle was gone. He held only a small pistol. The Krell dropped Zekthar and focused on this new threat. It roared and charged at Chris. Chris didn't run. He didn't even look scared. He smiled. Then, he raised his pistol and started shooting. Zekthar watched from the floor. The Krell was massive. Chris was injured and small by comparison. It should have been a quick death. Instead, Chris moved like water. He dodged the Krell's attacks by centimeters. He fired his pistol into the wounds already covering the Krell's body. When his pistol ran empty, he threw it at the Krell's face and pulled out a knife. The Krell grabbed Chris by the leg and threw him down the corridor. Chris hit the wall hard and didn't get up for a second. The Krell advanced slowly, savoring its victory. Chris stood up. He was shaking, bleeding, barely able to stand. He looked at the Krell, then down at his knife, then back at the Krell. "Come on then," Chris said. His voice was calm. "Let's finish this," the Krell charged. Chris waited until the last possible second, then dropped low and drove his knife upward into the Krell's throat. They both went down in a tangle of limbs. The Krell thrashed. Chris held on, pushing the knife deeper. Finally, the Krell went still. Chris pushed the body off and stood up. He looked at Zekthar. "You okay?" Chris asked. Zekthar couldn't speak. Couldn't move. He had just watched a injured, exhausted, outmatched human defeat a Krell warrior through pure determination and violence. It shouldn't have been possible. The laws of biology said it was impossible, but Chris had done it anyway. That was the moment. The moment Zekthar experienced real panic. Not fear of the Krell, but absolute terror at what humans were capable of when pushed. They didn't know when to quit. They didn't know when they were beaten. They just kept fighting until either they won or they died. What kind of species was this? "Come on," Chris said, offering his hand. "Let's find the others." Zekthar took the hand and stood up. His legs barely supported him. As they walked through the corridors together, all he could think was one thought, repeated over and over. The galaxy had no idea what it had just welcomed into its family. The medical bay of the Defiant was crowded and busy. Doctors and nurses moved between beds, treating wounded Marines. Zekthar sat in a corner. A bandage wrapped around his torso where the Krell had grabbed him. Nothing was broken, but the bruising was severe. Physical pain he could handle. It was the mental shock that wouldn't fade. He watched the humans work. Danny Price sat on a bed, while a doctor set his broken arm. The Marine joked with the nurse about how this was his third broken bone this year. Lisa Chen had a cut across her forehead that required stitches. She sat perfectly still while the doctor worked, not even flinching. Chris Turner, the human who had saved Zekthar's life, lay on a bed nearby. His injuries were more serious. Broken ribs, concussion, multiple lacerations. Yet he was awake and talking with Sam Rodriguez about some sports game happening back on Earth. They had saved all 40 civilians. Every single one. The cost was 1 Marine killed in action and 6 injured. 1 dead seemed to affect the humans more than 6 injured. Zekthar didn't understand that math. Ben Carter entered the medical bay. His arm was in a sling, but otherwise he looked unharmed. He walked over to Chris's bed and placed a hand on the Marine's shoulder. "You did good work out there, Turner," Ben said quietly. "Just doing my job, Sarge," Chris replied. "No," Ben said. "You went above and beyond. You saved Observer Zekthar when you could have focused on your own escape. That took guts." Chris glanced at Zekthar and shrugged. "Couldn't leave him behind. It's not who we are." Ben nodded and moved on to check on the other wounded. Zekthar stood up carefully and approached Chris's bed. "I must thank you," Zekthar said. "You saved my life." "Don't mention it," Chris said. "Seriously, it's not a big deal. You fought a Krell warrior while injured and weaponless," Zekthar said. "How is that not a significant achievement?" Chris thought about it for a moment. "I guess I didn't really think about it. I just did what needed to be done. That's what we do. When someone needs help, you help them. Doesn't matter if they're human or alien, or whatever. You help." Zekthar didn't know how to respond to that. In Velnari society, such sacrifice would be considered foolish. Risking your life for a member of another species made no logical sense. Yet Chris said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Later that day, Captain Jake Morrison invited Zekthar to attend a memorial service. The humans gathered in the cargo bay, which had been cleared for the ceremony. At the front of the room stood a photo of Private Kyle Henderson, the Marine who had died during the boarding action. He looked young in the photo. Too young. Jake spoke first. He talked about Kyle's bravery. About how Kyle had charged into a room full of Krell to protect wounded civilians. About how Kyle had given his life so others could live. His voice was steady, but Zekthar could hear the emotion underneath. Then Ben spoke. He shared a story about Kyle's first day on the ship, when he had gotten lost and ended up in the wrong briefing room. The Marines laughed at the memory. Then Ben's voice broke, and he couldn't continue. Sam stepped up and finished the story for him. One by one, the Marines shared memories. Some were funny. Some were sad. Zekthar watched as these warriors, these people who had fought so fiercely just hours ago, cried openly. They held each other. They grieved together. When the service ended, Jake approached Zekthar. "I know this might seem strange to you," Jake said. "The way we mourn. Your species is very emotional," Zekthar observed. "Velnari believe emotion clouds judgment." "Maybe," Jake said. "But our emotions are what make us human. They're what make us fight so hard to protect others." Kyle died protecting people he'd never met. He did it because he felt it was right. Not because it was logical. Because it was right. Zekthar thought about that. "I wish to understand," he said. "I have observed human combat capabilities. They are impressive. But I do not understand how your species developed such skills." Jake was quiet for a moment. "Come to my office. I'll show you something." In the captain's office, Jake pulled up a holographic display. It showed Earth, the human homeworld. Then he started showing images. Cities in ruins. Battlefields covered in bodies. Weapons that could destroy entire populations. War machines. Concentration camps. Mushroom clouds from nuclear explosions. "This is our history," Jake said. "For thousands of years, humans fought each other. We had wars that killed millions. We developed weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We did terrible things to each other." Jake said. Jake said. Jake said. Jake said. The images continued. Zekthar felt sick watching them. Such violence, such destruction. All human against human. "We learned how to fight because we fought ourselves," Jake continued. "We learned every dirty trick, every tactic, every way to kill and survive. We got very good at it. Too good. But you stopped?" Zekthar asked. "Eventually," Jake said. "We realized we were going to destroy ourselves if we didn't change. So we did. We unified. We stopped fighting each other and started working together. But we never forgot the lessons we learned. We never forgot how to fight. You choose not to fight, Zekthar said, understanding dawning. We prefer not to fight, Jake corrected. There's a difference. When we meet new species, we offer friendship first. Trade, cultural exchange, peace. But if someone threatens innocent people, if someone tries to hurt those who can't defend themselves, then we remember how to fight. And we're very, very good at it. Katie Walsh entered the office. She nodded at Zekthar. Observer, Captain. Mind if I join? Please, Jake said. Katie sat down. I heard you talking about our history. Want to know something interesting? Every weapon system on this ship was originally designed to kill other humans. Our combat tactics were developed fighting ourselves. Our medical technology got so advanced because we kept hurting each other in new and horrible ways. This seems... Zekthar searched for the word. Contradictory. You are violent and peaceful. Aggressive and compassionate. We're complicated, Katie agreed. We can be the best friend you ever had, or the worst enemy you can imagine. Sometimes, we're both to the same person, on the same day. It's confusing, even for us. Ben entered without knocking. Sorry to interrupt. Just wanted to check on the observer. You doing okay after today? I am. Processing, Zekthar said. Yeah, it was intense, Ben said. Look, I know what you saw today probably shocked you. Humans in combat can be pretty scary. But remember, we only fight like that when we have to, when there's no other choice. Private Turner told me you help people because it's not who you are to abandon them, Zekthar said. What did he mean? Ben smiled. It means we decided a long time ago what kind of species we want to be. We want to be the ones who help, the ones who protect, the ones who stand up for others, even when it's hard or dangerous. We've done terrible things in our past. Really terrible things. But we're trying to be better. Every day, we try to be better. Zekthar felt something shift in his understanding. These humans weren't just warriors. They were warriors who chose when to fight and when to help. They were dangerous, but they used that danger to protect others. They had learned the hardest lessons by suffering through them, and now they tried to prevent others from suffering the same way. I need to revise my report, Zekthar said quietly. What are you going to tell your superiors? Jake asked. Zekthar thought carefully about his answer. The truth, that humanity is the most dangerous species I have encountered, and also the most compassionate. That you should never be underestimated, and that the galaxy is fortunate you choose to be friends rather than enemies. Jake stood and offered his hand. Zekthar took it. This time, the gesture felt different. It felt like respect between equals. Thank you for your honesty, Jake said. And thank you for trying to understand us. As Zekthar left the office, he knew his life had changed. He would never see humans the same way again. He would never feel completely safe around them. But he would also never doubt them. And if he ever needed someone to watch his back, he knew exactly which species he would call. The council chamber of the Velnari High Command was silent as Zekthar entered. 12 senior military leaders sat in a semicircle, their faces showing curiosity and skepticism. Admiral Court Al sat among them, the only one who had witnessed the human ship in action. The others had only read reports. Cold data, sterile numbers. They didn't understand. Not yet. Zekthar stood at the center of the chamber, his datapads organized on the podium in front of him. 2 weeks ago, he had stood in this same spot, confident and certain. He had expected a simple assignment. Observe the primitive humans. Document their weaknesses. File a report dismissing them as irrelevant to galactic security. How naive he had been. And for more, 3-1. Thanks for watching. Observer Zekthar. the head counselor said. You have spent 2 weeks evaluating the human species. Present your findings. Truth. Honored counselors, Zekthar began. I must start by saying that my preliminary report was completely incorrect. I have deleted it. What I am about to tell you will sound impossible. Some of you will not believe me. I ask only that you watch the evidence I have gathered before making your judgments. Murmurs rippled through the council. The head counselor raised a hand for silence. Continue. Quote. Continue. Zekthar activated the first holographic display. It showed the human vessel, Defiant, facing 3 Krell warships. This engagement occurred 6 days into my observation period. Coalition forces had received orders to retreat and allow the Krell to attack the civilian convoy. Captain Jake Morrison, of the human ship, refused to follow those orders. A violation of military discipline, one counselor noted. Watch, Zekthar said simply. The hologram played at increased speed. The council watched as the Defiant charged into combat against superior numbers. They watched as it maneuvered impossibly, as its weapons tore through Krell armor, as it systematically destroyed 3 warships that should have destroyed it. The entire engagement lasted 12 minutes. When it ended, the council chamber was completely silent. This must be edited, a counselor said. No single ship can defeat 3 Krell warships. I witnessed this personally. Admiral Cortal spoke up. Every detail is accurate. I watched from my flagship as the humans did what our entire escort fleet could not. They saved that convoy. I know. I know. I know. I know. I know. Zekthar activated the next display. This is from the boarding action on the civilian transport, Bright Hope. I must warn you, this footage is disturbing. The hologram showed the corridor fight. The council watched as human marines, each one smaller than a single Krell warrior, used tactics and teamwork to overcome their opponents. They watched Danny Price fight with a broken arm. They watched Lisa Chen, barely half the size of her opponents, bring down a Krell through skill and determination. They watched the systematic clearing of the ship. Then the hologram showed Chris Turner fighting the Krell warrior. The council watched in stunned silence as the injured human refused to give up, refused to die, and somehow won an impossible fight. Pause, the head counselor commanded. The hologram froze, with Chris standing over the dead Krell. How is this possible? That human should be dead. That is the question I asked myself, Zekthar said. So, I investigated. I studied human history. I interviewed their crew. And I learned the truth. Humans are dangerous not because of their technology or their physical strength. They are dangerous because of their history. He activated another display. Earth's history unfolded before the council. Thousands of years of warfare. Weapons of incredible destruction. Tactics developed through endless conflict. The rise and fall of empires. The near destruction of their own species. For most of their recorded history, humans fought each other, Zekthar explained. They developed ways to kill that we have never imagined. They learned to fight in every environment, against every type of enemy. They mastered warfare because they had no choice. If they didn't learn, they died. But they stopped fighting each other, one counselor observed. Why? Because they chose to, Zekthar said. That is the most important thing to understand about humans. They are violent by nature and experience. But they choose when to use that violence. They prefer peace. They seek friendship. But when someone threatens innocent life, they become something else entirely. He pulled up his final piece of evidence. It was a simple recording of his conversation with Ben Carter. The council listened as the sergeant explained human philosophy. We decided what kind of species we want to be. We want to be the ones who help. Quote. We. Quote. We. Quote, quote. They have rules, Zekthar continued. They call them rules of engagement, laws of war. They limit themselves. They fight with restraint, even when fighting for their lives. Counselors, be grateful for those rules. Because I have seen what happens when humans fight at full capacity, even with their restraints in place. I cannot imagine what they would be like without limits. You fear them? A counselor stated. Yes. Zekthar admitted. I fear them. But I also respect them. And I trust them. During the boarding action, Private Chris Turner saved my life. He was injured. He could have escaped. Instead, he fought a Krell warrior with nothing but a knife to protect me. A member of a species he had only known for 2 weeks. That is who they are. They are both the most dangerous warriors and the most loyal allies. The head counselor leaned forward. What is your recommendation, Observer? Humanity has applied for full membership in the Galactic Coalition, Zekthar said. My recommendation is that we approve their application immediately. Not as a courtesy, not as politics, but as a strategic necessity. Explain, the head counselor demanded. Because we face a choice. Zekthar said. We can make them our allies, or we can risk making them our enemies. There is no middle ground with humans. They are loyal to those who treat them with respect, but they never forget betrayal. Choose alliance, and we gain the most capable warriors in the known galaxy. Choose otherwise, and we create the most dangerous enemy we could possibly face. He paused, making sure every counselor was paying attention. I have fought in 12 campaigns. I have observed 17 different species in combat. I have studied warfare for my entire career. And I tell you now, with complete certainty, that humanity is the most formidable military force I have ever encountered. Not because of their weapons or their ships, but because of their nature. They are survivors. They are adaptable. They are relentless. And most importantly, they care about protecting others, even at great cost to themselves. You speak as if they are invincible, a counselor said skeptically. No, Zekthar replied. They can be killed. They can be defeated. But it will cost you more than you can imagine. Every human will fight like Chris Turner fought, with everything they have, until they win or until they die. Admiral Courthall stood. I support Observer Zekthar's recommendation. I have seen human combat capability firsthand. They are exactly what the Coalition needs. Strong enough to defend us, but restrained enough to be trusted. The galaxy is a dangerous place. The Krell are just one threat. We need allies like humanity. The Council debated for an hour. Zekthar answered questions, showed more footage, explained his reasoning. Finally, the head counselor called for a vote. All in favor of granting humanity full Coalition membership, indicate now. 12 hands rose. The vote was unanimous. It is decided, the head counselor announced. Humanity will be welcomed as full members of the Galactic Coalition. Observer Zekthar, you will serve as our liaison to the human government. Help them integrate into Coalition society. Zekthar bowed. I am honored. As he left the chamber, his personal communicator beeped. A message from Captain Jake Morrison. Hey Observer, heard you made it home safe. If you're ever back in this sector, stop by for dinner. The crew would love to see you again. Fair winds and following seas, as we say on Earth. Your friend, Jake. Zekthar read the message 3 times. Your friend. The human considered him a friend. After 2 weeks, after seeing Zekthar at his weakest moment, Jake still called him friend. He typed a response. Captain Morrison, I would be honored to visit again. Thank you for showing me what humanity truly is. I hope the galaxy is ready for you. Your friend, Zekthar. 3 months later, Zekthar stood on Earth for the first time. The planet was beautiful. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. It looked peaceful. But he knew better now. This peaceful planet had produced the most dangerous species in the galaxy. And somehow, They had chosen to use that danger to protect others instead of conquering them. Jake met him at the spaceport with the entire crew of the Defiant. They welcomed him like family. Lisa Chen hugged him, which was a human gesture of affection he still wasn't comfortable with. Ben Carter shook his hand with genuine warmth. Chris Turner grinned and said, "Good to see you again, buddy." That evening, they had dinner together. They shared food and stories. They laughed and joked. They were casual and friendly. But Zekthar never forgot what he had seen. These same people, these same humans, who joked about sports and complained about the food, had fought with a ferocity that terrified him. Humans were a paradox. Gentle and brutal. Compassionate and deadly. Peaceful and warlike. They were everything contradictory, wrapped into one confusing species. And the galaxy would never be the same now that they had joined it. As Zekthar looked around the table at his human friends, he felt something unexpected. Not just respect or fear, but hope. Maybe humanity was exactly what the galaxy needed. Warriors who chose to protect instead of conquer. Dangerous people who used their danger for good. The future was uncertain. But with humans as allies, Zekthar believed it might just be a future worth fighting for.